Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Intangible Commerce with Ray Roberts and David Yarbrough, or as I sometimes call him, the Marlboro Man, even though he doesn't smoke cigarettes.
Nope.
Cigars only. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, and we're just going to jump right into this. I met a guy yesterday who does custom cigars and boxes, and he sends them out. People can come, and you can get them for your clients and such. I thought that was just the coolest idea. I've never seen anything like that.
That is pretty cool.
No, that's real card, cool. And I'm not going to give it to you, David, because I got to send out a bunch before you do, so everybody knows.
I'll just use it for myself. Just send myself
gifts
all the time.
I've got a custom cigar brand. I'll be like, no way! Yeah, look right here, David Yarbrough cigars. Mm-hmm. And you might actually need to watch out for that because the Marlboro team might be like, hey, wait a minute, Yarbrough, Marlboro, I don't. You dancing a line.
Mm-hmm. Can't do it. That's right.
You got locked down on the bro.
The bros.
Well, we have had a whirlwind adventure, David and I, recently of trade shows. I know we were both at ProMat. You were at IWLA recently. How was that show for folks who hadn't been?
It was great. I mean, that show is full of 3PL owners, so you're getting direct access to those folks, hearing what they're dealing with. Highly educational. There's a lot going on in the industry. One interesting thing, I know this kind of wasn't what we were going to talk about today, was all of them are full. So as you start to say, hey, Ray, how's business? Oh man, it's great. We're completely full. But they're also starting to notice some things are starting to be stagnant. So full is good, but stagnation in the market is stuff.
So
I'm not saying this is happening. I'm just saying, right, is stuff not moving as much. And, so I don't know. That was it. It was some interesting conversation. We can probably get into in another episode.
I think it makes sense.
Really good.
So just looking at ProMat and what all we did out there, there was a lot of robotics, and everybody's talking about robotics these days. I did a couple really short form videos on robots, and it seems like there's two roads, right? There's people who are like completely afraid of it. Man, it's going to take over everything. We're not going to have any jobs. You got the other side of the fence, and they're like, no, it's absolutely necessary. We have to have it. Where do you sit on that? Are you in the middle?
I've changed over the years. I think I used to be a what in the world's going on, and as my career began to take a different path, that it became inevitable that it was going to happen. Then now it's happening. I mean, I don't care who you are. It is happening, and it's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, that to me, think about it too. We're an interesting generation because we've seen both, and we're going to see both for the first time.
And it's already happening. I was actually surprised to know that there's already an over-the-road trucking service. It's semi-trucks, and it's operating in Texas and California. And what they do is the driver goes out and picks up the load in a 54-foot trailer, this proper semi, picks up the load, then drives to a destination point on the highway or highway entrance, sets everything up in the computer, hits go, closes the door, and the truck leaves. And he gets in an Uber or whatever, and he goes home. The truck then, or she, they, whoever, the truck then travels all the way down the highway to its destination where somebody else comes in their Uber, and they pick up the truck and drive it to the end user where it gets dropped off, maybe reloaded, and then sent back.
Wow.
Who'd have thought?
Wow.
And that's operating today.
And you mix that with the automation that I happen to see at ProMat, which, remember the folks across from us with the crushed up box? That was a cool, system that actually was a dock loading.
Yeah, it was like a pallet. You put a pallet and it would send it. So in the practicality for that system, I think it only makes sense in the storage industry, right? Because they're taking a pallet and they're sending it down inaccessible racking. So the racking isn't accessible from the outside, but just one one
Hmm.
section and you put it in, and it just shoots the pallet to the back. I can't think of a lot of
Right.
applicability for something like that other than long storage, maybe cold storage, but that
Possibly.
that thing's
And I was thinking of it like in
smashing
loading in.
boxes.
All I learned is don't put
Yeah,
boxes on it.
don't use it for boxes because this is going. It was that box was hanging off and kept getting beat up, and then the
Mm,
final day, for the folks who weren't there, the final day, this big racking system, that box that was all beat up, it was gone. They finally took it down.
no,
That's
they're just like, that's enough. I'm done with it. Not
that
messing with
box
it
has had
anymore.
it had its day. You know what I find really interesting about
Yep.
what you said a minute ago, though, so everybody's hitting capacity, but the market is slowing down. And I truly believe in, and I'm sure people in the comments will correct me if I'm wrong, but I truly believe this is a labor issue. We've come to a point now where companies have grown and grown and grown. They've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. They needed more and more people to operate, and the brands in which they serve needed more and more people to operate. Now it's at a point where we can't get people, and these companies have been very slow to adopt robotics that have been on the market for a long time. And we're not talking, just so everybody's aware, let's back up and take a second and talk about robotics. That is such a big term. You want to be technical, my phone is a robot, right? It's doing tasks I ask it to do. It's technically a robot, but in the warehouse, there's many types of robots. There's the ones that try to do the full process, and I say try because it's not successful. And then there's also the ones like, well, I don't want to name any names, but there's other ones that it's a follow behind where it just augments the labor. It still needs people, but it doesn't need anywhere near as many people, which means these companies that have
Yep.
this 10 to 15% of the bottom of their labor force that are constantly churning out, then they're constantly spending time hiring, training, and praying that they'll stay on for lunch and not just leave, that you don't have to worry about that anymore. That's a huge expense that these companies are hitting, and that's stunting future
Yep.
growth. That's my theory.
Yep. Yeah. No. You're right. You're onto something. And the other thing I'll add to that is the temp labor, because of the labor issues, then the temp labor has caused companies to look at that and go, okay, now if I have robotics, if I bring David and Ray in the warehouse who have never seen the warehouse before, all they have to be able to do is follow this robot around
Right.
in that scenario and pick. And I don't have to teach them. They don't have to really know how to use the system. If they're just pickers, all they got to do is say, here, just follow this. It's going to do it for you. Just
and
pick
I've
it.
seen that where they can actually change it to different languages. So if you have one user who speaks a different language, English or whatever it might be, it'll tell them in
Yep.
their native tongue what to do. How
Yep.
much more fluidity, is that the word? Do you need? We're
Sure.
making stuff
I'll
up here
go with
on
it.
Intangible Commerce. Welcome.
We don't care. Yeah. It'll take in the
We'll
world
go to a
people start
trade
using
show
it.
and someone will say fluidity. Oh, I know where you heard that.
Sounds like a company
You
name.
know,
We'll have to create a company
let's
around
be
that.
careful because I
Fluidity.
bet you it already exists.
It
With
probably
the world
does.
of e-com and all the names, if you've got ship end in anything, you can have a TMS tomorrow. I got this one.
Mm,
Ship leaf.
yep.
How about that?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's right. Ship and anything at
Ship
the end.
mouse. Like, doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Ship pin. We already
Ship
got it.
pin.
We got
Doesn't
it.
matter.
Well, so that's my theory about
Yep.
you've got these folks that it's 10% labor shortage today. 10 to 15% is what most people are estimating. That's at your current volume. You're keeping growing. These companies are still growing and increasing volume over and over and over. Well, what if by next year you do hit that 100% increase that you're predicting? And now you're not 10 to 15% short. You're 20 to 30% short of labor. And that number
That's
keeps
right.
climbing and climbing. You're hitting the ceiling at some point. But that's not how business works. That's not how capitalism works. Capitalism is growth at all costs. But on the flip side of this, we don't have labor. So as a consumer,
Nope.
our consumer experience is going to get worse. if you don't adopt
Yep.
robotics, we're not going to get packages on time
Right.
or the right one.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No, and what's happened too is the robotic companies have come in and said we need to make the ability to get
Yep.
robots easier, which is so going backwards. Then the biggest complaint, like you mentioned before, is it's too expensive. Well, one, I don't want to mess with it. Two, it's too expensive. Well, now the robotic companies have said, haha,
Yep.
just rent them. Let's just charge you a little fee each month, and if you want 50, then next month you need 40. We don't care, or if you want whatever, ramp up, ramp down. So that's changed the ability for. I'm actually hearing smaller companies now all of a sudden have an interest in robotics because as that marketing message gets
Absolutely.
out there, they're like, hey,
You need
we
6
can afford that.
robots. Get you 6 robots. It's a monthly SaaS fee. The SaaS model is a
Yep.
beauty. You can do anything in a SaaS
Yep.
model. Well, as an example, the hottest real estate right now is not like home buying and all this. It is short-term rentals. It's
Yeah.
house as a
That's right.
service, but it is a SaaS model. Anything as a service can be SaaS. And that's what I love about it because that is
Yep.
going to enable and effectively brands that recognize that, no matter how small they are today, will grow and be larger than their bigger competitors tomorrow. And tomorrow could be 6 months,
Yep.
could be a year and a half, but it will happen. Those who adapt and adopt to robotics are going to win.
Yep. I agree. It's almost like if you think about our age group, and I'm going to loop you in with me, that grew up watching the Jetsons. And when we watched the Jetsons, we thought, man, how can that's so futuristic. But if you think about it, besides the flying cars, which I don't know why those don't exist, that's a whole nother topic. Um, all that kind of robotic stuff, though, we have all that now. The ordering food, the way we run warehouses, the way
Drone
home
delivery.
automation, all that stuff, and drone delivery. Yeah, there you go, drone delivery. So in a way, it is flying cars. Thank you
That
for that.
is,
That actually
I
kind of
mean,
helps
that's a
that with
great
that one
parody,
too.
though. It really is. And it's funny you mentioned. So there's a company in, it's in Africa somewhere. I can't remember. I think in Zimbabwe, and there was a young man there who had an idea to get medical supplies to remote area hospitals. He designed a system that literally catapults a drone off a rail, shoots it off, it flies to the hospital, little door opens up, and it drops the package of whatever they need, blood, medicine, whatever they
Wow.
need, and then the drone then just turns around and comes back. And they catch it with this
Yep.
catching like a rig, and it like literally grabs the tail and it stops the drone, and they launch it. They're launching drones one every minute and a half. It's incredible.
Wow.
Incredible. They have some million hours worth of flight time, but their new service, which is apparently coming to the States and Europe, is going to be that of food delivery and goods delivery and all sorts of things. But if you think about this for a minute, grandma and grandpa don't have to get out and go to get their medicines anymore. They don't have to worry about unreliable mail delivery services
Nope.
anymore. They can order stuff, and this
Nope.
drone will fly to their house, and a little thing just drops down, and it sets a package, and then it goes back up. I think they call it crane or lift or
That's
crane
right.
lift or something like that.
Yep. 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 Well, and the other thing you start to look at is, so we talk about robotics and we talk about automation and then we talk about AI. Those start to come together, and then there's this again, going back earlier, we talked about the fear of it. So then the person in the warehouse says, well, I don't have a job. And it's like, hold on a second. If you're willing to work, you do have a
Yeah.
job, because that's the whole point that these things exist. But as the employer, what they're looking at is these robots rarely break down. They don't call in sick. They don't talk back. I mean, there's all those things that go on. And then I know we're not talking AI today, but you
Well, I
start
think we
looking at
should.
AI in that, all of a sudden, the efficiencies start to present themselves automatically if done correctly. I mean, I'm not an AI expert by any means, but when you think about AI, it's like in a warehouse, it makes perfect sense for all these things to coexist. in that world, because what do you need in a warehouse? 100% accuracy. Time is of the essence, right? Timing's everything. And then just being able, safety. I mean, all
That's a
those
really
things in
good
a
point.
warehouse, that's what they want.
Safety, heat mapping, understanding how to flow through. That stuff exists right now, but if you start applying AI to things, so here's the thing: where is that line? Being a fan of AI, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute. Let's talk about that. What is the line of AI? It's not been drawn. There are no regulations. Right now, it's the wild, wild west. They can do whatever they want. What's that line for you? What does that look like?
It's almost like I have to separate it,
Right?
personally versus business. In a business environment, I'll tell you that go for it, right? I don't know if there is a line yet, because it, again, as a consumer, accuracy, speed, availability, that's what I want. I want it now. Now personally, I feel like, man, that has to be regulated somehow, because if as that gets into the, I don't know, what would you call it, the personal market, or just
Mainstream.
our everyday
Yeah.
lives, yeah, that could. There are a lot of issues I see with learning machines that can start to make decisions and have emotions, if you will, and affect the way that we interact with not only one another, but with those those machines and that AI.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the kids that cheat on tests. I'm not saying they do it, but there's all that algorithms out there that
Right.
allow them to write, and they say now you can take one, write it, and go to another one, and it'll look at it and see, make sure it doesn't look like it was out of an AI. It's like, what?
Wow.
Where was that 20,
Dude,
30
college has
years
got a
ago?
heck of a lot easier. And I think they're going to have to change the way
I
that's
know.
done. I think it makes it especially difficult for virtual colleges to exist the way that they do it, depending on the
Yes.
profession, of
Yes.
course. But the funny thing about what is that? They call it fake it till you make it, right? Or is it
Mm-hmm.
fake it till you break it? Like at
Mm-hmm.
some point, you're going to get found out. This guy don't know anything about what he's talking
Got
about.
to.
But what does that affect, right?
You
That's
have to. I mean,
it's going to have an effect.
right. Well, I was going to say that, yeah, if you think about it, the only way that, if everything started to go to that, then the only people they're going to get that still have to rely on themselves are
Yep.
like athletes, because you can't, unless you took some altering meds or whatever, or drugs, but athletes. And then, I mean, other than that, all your scientists, all the things that are thought about could, in
It
theory,
could be impacted.
be developed through AI or
Could
robotics
be
or whatever. It
impacted
could
by
be
that.
impacted. So, and even athletes could be, because if you developed one that can hit the ball further or whatever, that gets into a whole other thing. But we are definitely, I would stress again that our generation is in an interesting time period that we're going to see both. In fact, I also think that we're also to blame if people don't like this. I hate to say it, our generation is the one that created
Absolutely.
this.
And continues to develop.
Think about it. I mean, this is
Could.
us. Yeah, people want to blame millennials and everybody else. It's like, no, that was us that wanted things better and wanted it faster and wanted,
And again, going back to the labor
data.
market, you have to have it. There's 11 million open jobs and only 7 million available workers.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I don't know about your math skills, but my math skills tell me that that
there's a
doesn't
gap
work.
there.
Right? Yeah,
There's a several million person gap there, and every sign in my town has a help wanted out front. Every single one of them.
they
And you
do.
can't go anywhere anymore because it takes forever to get
Mm-mm.
even food service. It takes forever to get food. Well, if
That's
an
right.
AI and in a robot is cooking the fries for you, let's go with that example. The AI is going to run a data analysis on the heat mapping of customer load at every minute of every day,
Yeah,
and it knows
it
to go ahead
knows.
and start cooking up fries. And it even knows
That's
that
right.
Jimmy Joe Johnson's going to roll through here and order a McDouble, and he does it every Wednesday at 2:30 on the dot. Like that
That's right.
network, how big could it get? Is it then going to plug into Jimmy Joe Johnson? I don't even know who you are, Jimmy Joe Johnson, but welcome to the show. You do a
But you
lot. We
you do a
appreciate
lot.
you. Is it going to connect to his GPS
Yeah,
and then know he's on his way based on his route that he's taking? Is that available? Is that something you can even opt in or out of? The ultimate question here too:
hmm
could an AI start a war? Could AI start a
Man,
war? Could it do something to make it look like something else? Could it start a war? It's a, those are the kind of
very
questions
possible.
I find really interesting.
So if we ever wanted to start our tinfoil hat
Now's the time.
podcast, we
Now's
could
the
get into
time.
some of that, right? But seriously, I think if we pay attention to what Congress is working on
Right.
in general, just watch, keep an eye on the way things. There is something that just came out. I don't want to get too deep into it, but there is some. I don't remember which one it was. I just read about it yesterday, but essentially they're trying to change the way that the internet can, or things on the internet can be
Okay.
tracked and things like that, which would make perfect sense if you, in a good or bad way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on or how you view that. But those type of things are how we're going to start seeing, if certain things are say, yes, we can do this, then more AI or robotics will be
I
used, and,
can't
and
wait
it
till we
can be
get
used in
a
various
VPN
situations.
sponsor. don't don't want to be
Right,
tracked online?
exactly.
Use blah 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 VPN.
Use blah 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 for your. One more thing I was thinking of too when we were talking about the whole robotics and AI stuff is it's going to change the way, just in a practical way, how you and
Right.
I do our jobs when we are having to price customers, because guess what? The per user is out the
Gone.
window.
Yep.
Doesn't matter. I don't care how many users you got, because you don't have
It's
users, or
robotics
limited
or
users.
whatever. No, you're right. And they say these things can write books. Well, what else can it do? Could I have an
Hmm.
AI sales rep for some of these SaaS jobs? They've got leads that are coming to them, right? And could you run that? We're sales guys. I know this is Intangible Commerce. We talk about all things commerce, and every single one of you have salespeople. Have you guys ever thought about, could an
Hmm.
AI replace a proper sales rep in some cycle or in some fashion? I mean, you have to wonder about that sort of thing. The jobs that are tough to hire for, BDR, SDR, I mean, these are tough roles. Is AI going to replace that? I personally don't think so. I think that human to human interaction is how things get done in business. I think the networking of I shake your hand, you shake mine is how things get done in a business world. But who
Yep.
knows?
I would say that my company thinks I am AI, because they're
Oh
like, "How are
boy.
you so freaking
Oh,
good?
here
There's
we
no
go.
way you could be human."
I
But I
can
am.
prove it to everybody that he is both human and just as humble as Southern Pie. Just
But no, everything this stuff's exciting. I mean, this is, uh, you know, the more I think about this stuff, the more excited I get. I mean, let's face it, even in our day to day, I mean, I
mhm.
bought a new truck, and the stuff that is in it, and I went from one that wasn't new, right?
You
So
went
just
from
to take
old to
that brag
new.
out of there, I went from a '07, I went from '07 to 21.
That's a jump.
Man, come on. That and the technology is
Oh yeah,
crazy. The thing
yeah.
drives itself. I mean, the thing, it knows where it's at. It parks itself.
I mean, we're going down a
Come on.
path now, but the thing I
Then
love
that's it.
about my new car is the cruise control. Because when I'm going on long trips and I set that cruise control, it
Yes.
knows there's a car in front of it. It doesn't
Yes.
get too close. It doesn't go too far. It's just the best thing ever. And then we've got some technical issues here with David's mic. Here you go. He got too excited. He unplugged it.
Sorry. My battery.
Oh,
My
his
battery.
battery's going down. Well, so the other side of this coin I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about before we jump off here, the side of robotics and AI or whatever you want to call it, that's not going to work. And for me, there's two major ones out there. One is a fully autonomous warehouse. I've seen warehouses. I'm sure most of the people listening have seen a warehouse or two in their time. Warehouses are not, even in the most organized scenario, not predictable enough for a robot to take its little robot arm and grab boxes and all. It's just not feasible for 90% of us out there to use a fully autonomous warehouse.
So, and this probably opens up for a whole nother segment, but could we somehow use RFID? I know I went old school, but let's just go with me here. along with robotics, along with AI, I'll make
Bro,
AI their umbrella. Does that now, because in my opinion, RFID was left out on its own island and never had much adoption. I know it did. People probably comment, oh, I use it all the time. I
not
get it. But you
widespread.
got to understand, in my 20 years in this industry, that so many times it's been done and
Yeah.
bailed on. Well, is that because it just didn't make sense? But does something like that, or maybe RFID, maybe there's a new one I don't even know about, but is that now the new way, to your point, Ray, that they do it now? It could be more efficient because now the warehouse gets smart, like my truck. Does the warehouse just get smarter?
Pick
I
to
don't know.
Light, I think, is one of those systems too that good idea, not a lot of adoption, but companies are still trying to
No.
innovate on it. And I just don't understand that because it doesn't
Yep.
address the core problem, labor. We're going to run out of people. We already have.
Right.
We've already
So
ran
it
out of
takes
people.
labor. All of those do. Pick to Light, pick a voice
Have you seen the
pick.
glasses? You put the glasses
Yep,
on,
the
yeah,
AI glass, or
and,
the
and it tells you
yep.
what to pick.
But still, the glasses have to go on a
Exactly.
person.
It's like, guys
Yeah.
and gals, we're not addressing the problem. We don't have enough people.
Yeah.
And if you think some cool gadgets are going to
Yep.
make people want to be a warehouse person, you're dead wrong. Warehouse is a great profession. It's a great launch pad for a career.
Yep.
But it's
There's a reason there's an entire floor at ProMat dedicated to automation.
You have to have it if you're going to succeed in tomorrow's market.
Yep.
You have to adopt and adapt to today's challenges, right? In the Marines, we say adapt and overcome. Well, if you don't adapt, you're not going to overcome. So that's why we say it.
Yep. And us non-Marine people say, hey, I've got a problem, call the Marines.
If it absolutely must be blown up overnight, 1-800-MARINE
Call the Marines.
Today's
coolest
sponsor.
People around, in my opinion.
the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Well, now we're well off topic.
I don't remember. I know, now we're way off. Well, but as we close here, that's another one too. You even mentioned it. I'll bring us back. All of that will be affected by this because, military, everybody. Again, it's all logistics. Think about moving stuff in and out of a war zone, how you can make it safer. I mean, all of it will be affected, and I think we're on the cusp of just some really cool stuff.
Absolutely. There's a lot going on. If anybody made it out to ProMat, it was fantastic. They said the highest show attendance in its history this year, and I can't remember what the number was. It was somewhere up in the 50s, 60,000 people were out there. Absolutely fantastic to see.
Yep.
And I look forward to doing more next year. I know that our company, Logibus, was out there. We represented in strong force and fashion. And a lot of companies were very surprised by the automations within the WMS market. We've got all kinds of tools coming up in the Logibus program that we can't talk about on air. But if anybody out there doesn't know who Logibus is, if you have a warehouse, reach out to David or I on the podcast. There's going to be a link to our information, and we'd love to be able to talk with you more one-on-one about automation, warehousing, and the fulfillment market in general, and how everything's being affected by AI in your labor shortage. So we'd love to be able to do that with you.
Yep, love to network with people.
Absolutely. So East Coast folks to the mid, reach out to me, and everybody from Texas up and over, reach out to David. How about that?
There you go. Splits
David's
it up pretty
a Texas
nice.
Guy, and I'm out here in Indiana. Well, I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, so that's why I say. But I actually live in Indiana because nobody knows much about Indiana, but everybody knows about Louisville, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. They love horse racing, bourbon, and basketball.
Yep, that's right. And UPS. And UPS, their big hub there or something.
Well, I mean, there's another one that could do with some automation. There's all kinds of opportunity for logistics companies to get involved with automation, robotics, and AI. And if anybody out there is nervous about it, we'd sure love to talk to you more about that. But we're coming up on the half-hour mark, and I'm so proud of us. I don't think I have to edit any of this. This is a live. We're doing a live format, and this is going to go straight up. So if we
live, anything we do happens live.
All that he just did. For those that are audio only, he's playing with his pen. So and sipping his
Yep.
coffee. But yeah, no, really appreciate it. Thanks so much. We're 30 minutes in. Cut everybody loose. David, hope you have a
Yep.
great day, sir.
Always a
Always.
pleasure.
See
Thank you,
ya.
Ray.